Hello there, YouTube. You may remember a couple of years ago I did a charity event with a bunch of other streamers, and we made player covenants at level 60, and we did Taunter's Tongue runs and fought in the arena and all kinds of silly stuff. And my covenant was based around like the Moog dynasty stuff, family members that had to have Bloodflame Talon and like a Moog uniform t-shirt, and they were called the Family. And in the DLC they introduced a new Moogwyn dynasty character in Ansbach who rules, and we all love him. And if you do his quest and beat Radon, you can get a spell called the Furious Blade of Ansbach. And so I took my level 60 build with plus 12 weapons, and I went and I beat Radon in the DLC. And it took about 6 hours, but we got him. And now I am trying out this spell to see how it is. I have also swapped from the Warhawk Talon that I was using to Milady, because Milady is essentially a upgraded Warhawk Talon in every way. You get the dope heavy attack double slash with way more range. I have occult infused it. Sometimes it'll be bleed infused. I sort of bounced around back and forth trying to decide what I wanted to go with on that. And Ansbach's armor pieces will boost the damage of Bloody Slash, as well as Rivers of Blood, as well as one of the other ones, Blood Tax. Check the item description of an Ash of War, and if it calls it a Blood Oath, then that is an Ash of War that can be buffed by Ansbach's armor pieces. Unfortunately, it doesn't buff the Moog spells any, which is a shame. I would have really liked that. But, that's okay. Here we go. Ansbach's Furious Blade. Is it good? I'll give you the too long didn't read. I love a lot of bad spells in Elden Ring. Carrying Greatsword, O-Flame. There's a couple others that I love that are bad. Howl of Shabriri. Bloodflame Talon. Insofar as those spells are concerned, the Furious Blade of Ansbach is the best bad spell that I love, if that makes sense. I definitely think that it could do some stuff seriously, like in terms of damage, because it procs multi-hit Talisman and Wondrous Physic. It's chargeable, so you could use Godfrey Icon. It's got a lot of stuff going on that I think would, you could buff this spell if you spect all the way out for it. I think you could get it to do some serious damage. The problem is hitting somebody with it. But as always, the Saint Riot rule of you have to try it in order to hit it is true here. You have to be willing to throw a few out and learn how it works, its range. It can be free aimed. You have almost total control over it. If you're unlocked, you can take it wherever you want it to go. The more you play with it, the more you'll understand it, right? And the more you play with it and the more you attempt to hit it, the more you will hit it. And so, it's not great. It's not a good spell. But oh my god, it's so fun. And in as far as bad spells are concerned, it's probably the best bad spell. It's not great, but it's not terrible. And it looks cool as hell, and so I love it. And that's the too long didn't watch version of my review of the Furious Blade of Ansbach. Now there's 20 minutes left in the video, so here's 20 minutes of me using the Furious Blade of Ansbach. We've got to find a way to shorten that down. we've got to get a URL shortener for this spell. The same is true of the poison flower blooms twice or whatever. We have got to find a way to... I would prefer to not go with initials. FBA is great initials, but you know, I feel like the thing with initials is no one ever understands them, right? So I would prefer to not go with initials. Furious Blade sounds pretty cool. I like that. So the thing about Blood Flame Talon is it's hard to hit somebody with it. What's great about it, and what makes it worth using, is everything true combos out of Blood Flame Talon. If you land Blood Flame Talon, you have something that you can then use to true combo with. If you're playing an Int Faith build, for example, something I like to do is if you can hit Blood Flame Talon, then that true combos into Carry and Greatsword. And then if your cast speed is maxed, that true combos into Carry and Piercer. Like, there's all kinds of fun stuff that you can do with the Blood Flame Talon. And that's another one of those examples, or that's another example of those spells that, like, it's not good, but you'll hit it more than you think you will if you just, like, if you're not afraid to throw it out there a little bit. What you just saw there, I think, kind of a shortcoming of the Furious Blade. It creates this little, I don't want to say pillar because it's like a column, I guess. It creates a little column of fire around it that has this lingering hitbox. That's nice. That's good. It should have something like that. So it's nice that it does have that. But it's pretty small. I wish it went like all the way around your character after you cast the spell. But it's pretty tiny. So it doesn't go all the way around. So in situations like what you saw there, where I go for it, and I'm trying to like maneuver around a little bit to like maximize the damage and the hits. Instead, what I end up doing is, you know, maximizing how to screw up the fire hitbox. And in that instance right there, you just saw how that fire hitbox kind of lingers around. That's the uncharged version that I just used against the Moonveil there. And then for the most part, I'm using the charged version. And I'm using it as like a roll punish, or a prediction against a bad roll, or a prediction against a bad move. You know, when I start charging it up, I'm using it like that. When players have low health, or they have another enemy that they have to contend with, these types of spells, that's where they kind of flourish at. If someone has low health, it's great, because, you know, they might be more worried about healing themselves than they are anything else. You see me using the Dragon Claw spell here, and the Dragon Claw can double cast. You cast it once, you cast it twice. If you only cast it once, and then you replace the next input with a different spell, you know, like Blood Flame Talon or Furious Blade of Ansbach, you kind of like skip some of the starting animations of that spell that you're casting. And then on top of that, Dragon Claw has so much hit stun that if it hits someone, it leaves them staggered long enough for you to get something like Blood Flame Talon started up. And so if you hit someone with the Dragon Claw and then do Blood Flame Talon, if they decide to stand there and try and come out of that hit stun with an attack or something along those lines, even a roll forward, Blood Flame Talon a lot of times will do some work for you in those instances. And so I like to do like Dragon Claw into Blood Flame Talon. And those are both arcane spells that require arcane to cast. So there's some nice symmetry there between those. So I talked a little bit about things that you could potentially run with Furious Blade, Godfrey's Icon, multi-hit stuff, things of that nature. Even the regular incantation boosting talismans. I can't remember what they're called, but you know what I'm talking about. Something about the flock. Oh, the Phlox Canvas Talismans and stuff like that. Yeah, that would be good. I'm not running any of that. Let's talk about what I am running. Because this is level 60, I'm running Marika's Soar Seal. Those Soar Seals are great. It's given me 5 Mind, 5 Faith, 5 Arcane, and 5 Int, which I don't need, but, you know. At level 60, those things are great. I don't know that at level 60 I would run both Radigan and Marika's, but at like level 30 or something, yeah, absolutely. Level 60 is about the cutoff, I would say. It would hurt to wear one at level 70. I have a build where I wear one at level 70. It's not terrible, but if you get hit by a password summoned phantom, you are going to know, especially if it's a weapon that has like innate bleed on it. Those innate bleed weapons, when used by those password summoned over-leveled phantoms, those will absolutely, like, they're not playing at level 60. They're the downscaling, quote unquote. It doesn't work when it comes to a fully upgraded weapon with bleed built into it. But I need Marika's Soar Seal for the Mind and the Faith and the Arcane, so that's all necessary. I'm also using the Outer Gods Talisman, which is +5 Arcane. I am also using Millicent's Prosthetic, which gives me +5 Dex, as well as the multi-hit buff. And then I'm using the Lord of Blood's Exaltation. And that is a talisman that you can get at the bottom of Lindell in a dungeon surrounded by lobsters in the sewers. You got to go through there and beat a guy who looks like Pyramid Head inside of a Silent Hill PT dungeon, where the dungeon is constantly repeating but making you think that it's not repeating. It's a 10 out of 10. It's a 10 out of 10 reference. But that talisman gives you a buff whenever someone bleeds around you, even yourself. There's also consumables in the DLC that you can farm off of the Blood Fiend Mole Men guys. You might see them in my inventory down there. I rarely ever use them because I rarely ever use farmable stuff. But it's nice to have them there just in case. And that item does essentially the same thing as the Lord of Blood's Exaltation, except I believe it also gives you a slight boost to Arcane right off the bat when you use it, and then it gives you another. This is kind of similar to Mohg's Great Rune. Mohg's Great Rune gives this buff to like all of the enemies if you're an invader in the vicinity, and then if someone bleeds out, they get a further buff as well. I think that's how it works. But yeah, that's the talismans I'm using. I'm using Double Slash. You'll see me play around with Bloody Slash a little bit. Like I said, you get a buff on Bloody Slash. I don't like it as much. I just really like, Double Slash and Spinning Slash and Sword Dance. I like all of the meat and potato Ash of Wars as opposed to some of the other ones. I will say Bloody Slash has some hyper armor, so that part's nice, at least. And it does do good damage. And if I'm playing with all these bleed spells and I go with an occult sword, Bloody Slash gives me another thing that I can do that will help me with blood loss buildup. Because the occult Milady there's no innate blood buildup there, so it's just kind of whatever at that point. You're getting better damage because occult scaling has better occult infusion has better arcane scaling for just damage, but it has worse, like bleed buildup than if you were to just focus on being bleed infused. That backstab, as an example, bleed infused damage is ass. So that bleed infused backstab right there, not doing a lot of damage, but it does do a decent amount of blood loss buildup. And so that's like a sacrifice you get to pick about whether or not you're going to make it. I've opted to make it less. The damage is nice. Obviously, the bleed out damage is good. I get a buff when someone bleeds out. That's good. But what the third secret thing is that when a player bleeds out, there's typically some level of, oh god, what just happened, involved. And that's nice. Those little moments of confusion can help sway a fight in one direction or the other. And so I like to take advantage of that whenever I have a chance. And bleed, frostbite, madness, things like that, they help keep an invasion manageable sometimes in like these 3v1 scenarios, because players are hesitant to just, you know, bleed out, take a bunch of damage, and then continue to like chase you. I'm not saying none of them will ever do it, because some people do. And they are either very smart or very dumb, and there's no distinguishing, you know, which it is, which is hilarious and, you know, a good example of how Elden Ring PvP works. It seems like a stupid thing to do, but it's the smart play. And there's no telling if your opponent did it because they were smart or if they did it because they were dumb. Blood Boon, obviously another spell that I have on this build. I love Blood Boon. Blood Boon works best free aimed. Sometimes, you know, you really just kind of feel like you have to lock on with it. Sometimes it's good to lock on with it. In the mid-range, Blood Boon is great to lock on, because it's going to go on the floor. That's where we want it. We want it on the floor, and we want them walking on it. It's essentially like lava that bleeds you, and that's nice. That slow, steady buildup of bleed, along with getting hit by a bleed-infused weapon, you know, that adds up immediately. This guy has like very little HP. We're gonna get this parry off of Piercing Fang, and our riposte damage is like, it's not enough to kill him, you know. But it does do a nice little chunk of bleed buildup when you get a riposte or a backstab, so that's fine. I'm willing to give up that damage for the bleed buildup. If you had a second weapon, you know, that you liked to switch to, after, you know, keep the bleed infused weapon, and then after you bleed them out, switch to the occult weapon. Now your damage has been buffed because they bled out because of your Lord of Blood exaltation. And that's cool. And now you're switching to an occult weapon. It's going to do better damage anyway, and now it's going to do even better damage, because you've got Lord of Blood exaltation, and the occult weapon has better arcane scaling. But at level 60, this is kind of not, you know, we're talking about plus 12 weapons. Plus 12 weapons don't have great scaling, period. You know, they can have okay scaling, and some will actually have good scaling at 60, but those are very few and far between. But like, some weapons will have, like, I think some weapons can have an A in a stat at plus 12. There might even be like one or two that can have it at that can even have S scaling at plus 12. I don't remember, but I feel like there are some weapons that get that S pretty quick, but they are very few and far between. So it's not something that, you know, like, that's one of the reasons when you make a low-level build, you don't have to focus on getting the stats up. You know, you just need the stats to be where they have to be for you to use the thing you like. Because the vast majority of your damage is just coming from that upgrade and not from any stat scaling. If you can afford to have the stat scaling, great. But if you're making a weird build at level 60, one, you're psychotic. I say that as a psychotic, so I'm allowed to judge. It is such a pain in the ass to make a weird build at level 60. This invasion right here is a fantastic example of why it is a pain in the ass. This Phantom that we're going to fight, I think he ended up being like, he was either level 200 or 400, I forget which. But he's using bleed-infused weapons, and you're going to see, as soon as he hits me, like, every attack bleeds me out, and he's dual-wielding. And so, I just can't get hit twice, or I'm dead. Like, that's how much damage he's going to do. There you go. Yeah, look at that. Just absurd damage, absurd bleed out. Everything about this is absurd. And at level 60, this is why, like, when you make a level 60 build, if you want to win the majority of your invasions at level 60, what you should do is you should put all of your points into, like, vigor and endurance, and then just give yourself, like, the minimum required stats necessary to use whatever weapon you're going to use, and then probably cold infuse it, so that you get the frostbite. You're still doing decent damage. It's magic damage. Like, that would be my suggestion if you're trying to invade at level 60 and you just want to, like, you just want to stand a chance against these types of jokers. That's what you're going to need to have to do, because, like, look at how much stuff I have to do to beat Jerry. You know what I'm saying? Jerry has one move. Jerry has one game plan. And I have to, like, play 9-dimensional chess on a series of tubes in order to, eke out a win. It's pretty absurd. But it feels good. Man, it feels good when you beat a Jerry. When you beat a Jerry with your silly build, and you know that they were level 400 and you're level 60, oh man. Oh man, the bragging rights. Imagine just getting owned at level 400 or whatever by a level 60 guy. And then, of course, the gamble there is the level 200, 400 guy. He is like, I'll take care of this. But if you don't, then your host is just left alone to die to the furious blades of Ansbach. Ansbach, by the way, we have got to say this. The greatest defense attorney since Johnny Cochran. Okay? This man dropped one sentence, and Moog was cleared, and his trial was, he was pronounced not guilty immediately off of Ansbach just saying one sentence. This man is, God's greatest defense attorney, Ansbach. What an incredible lawyer this dude is. You wonder, like, how high, like, how did he rank so highly in Moog's army? And then you talk to him and you're like, God, this guy rules. And because he does rule, and it's very easy to see that he rules. But then at the end of the DLC, he drops one sentence and everybody's like, that's it, I've heard enough. Moog is not guilty. Right? What a just a powerful defense attorney. This is the guy that you want to defend you in the court of not even law, in the court of public opinion. That's how powerful he is. Really, just can't say enough nice things about this guy. Also, look at his 6th spell. Some of you are probably like, Saint, are you going to try out the Scythe? I will. I can't on this build. I don't have the stats. But I will try out his Scythe. I have another family build that is like level 150 or something. And I will try out the Obsidian Lamina, or whatever the hell it's called. Lamia? Obsidian Lamia? Is that what it is? Is that it? I'll try that out at like level 150. And I look forward to it. I hope to see good things. But this has been the Furious Blade of Ansbach. And it's fun. It's not great. It's not great. But it's fun. It rules. It rules to use this move. I am an enjoyer of it. Here is the build. Like I said, this is level 60. And we have, Millicent's prosthetic. We have the Outer God heirloom. And we have Marika's Source Seal on this build. Right? So we got up to 40 vigor. I think we started as a prophet. I'm actually very confident. Started as a prophet, got up to 40 vigor, And then we all just let talismans carry us, baby. Take me home. And then I pumped everything I could into Arcane. And that's it. That's the build. And you got to see what it could do. And hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you liked and subscribed to the video, shared the video, your friends the video. I'll see you next time. Later, y'all.